Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to Mahabharata Myths. This is episode 5 of the series where we take a look at the myths and misconceptions about the great epic and the real facts presented through authentic sources. So we have already covered quite a few of myths in our previous episodes. So I would request you to please subscribe to our channel so that you can get updates whenever there are new episodes, and you can also get to see previous episodes. So, my name is Deepak. With me is my fellow author and co-host Pranshu Saxena, and we are joined by two guests today. Like last week, we have Vijaykrishnan from Bharat Narratives, and then we have author Bharti V, who's joining us. She has been there with us before. So today we are going to go to day 13 and 14 of the battle the Kurukshetra war, to be precise, where we'll take a look at two key personalities, one from this side, which is Abhimanyu, and one from the Kaurava side, Jayadratha. So there is a cause and effect relationship between the two. The killing of one led to the killing of the other. So we look at myths related to these two personalities. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So we are going to talk about myths related to Abhimanyu. So there are a couple of myths, but we will look at one as the main myth here. It is that Abhimanyu was refused water by Karna. So this is a strange story which is circulating, that Abhimanyu was dying and he asked Karna for water, but Karna refused to give water. So that is a very interesting story. And what we have seen on TV is that Abhimanyu was given a mercy killing. So he was dying, and to save him, Karna stabbed him, or there was a group attack wherein 5-6 people surrounded him and stabbed him. So what are the facts behind this? So the 13th day was when Dronacharya formed the Chakravyuha. So this was the battle formation where his objective was to try and trap Yudhishthira so that the Kauravas could win the war. So now the aim of the Chakravyuha was to trap Yudhishthira, but the problem was Krishna and Arjuna knew how to break into it. So they made a plan by which they used Susharma and the Trigartas, who had taken a vow to kill Arjuna, and they took Krishna and Arjuna away from the battlefield to the other end, and the Chakravyuha was formed. Now Abhimanyu knew how to get in, but he did not know how to get out. So Abhimanyu goes into the Chakravyuha and he fights valorously throughout the day. There is a rumor, or you can say another myth, that he was a poor boy, he got killed, he could not defend himself, or he was trapped. The actual facts is something quite different. Abhimanyu created terror in the Kaurava ranks on the 13th day. So what he did was he kept fighting. He took the battle right into the heart of the Kaurava ranks. He killed many Kaurava warriors, including the king Bruhadbala, who was the king of Koshala, the kingdom which was ruled by Rama earlier. Then he killed Karna's brother. Then he defeated Karna 3 or 4 times. He defeated Duryodhana. He defeated Dushasana. So there was total havoc. Then finally they decided to use deceit. They cut off his bow from behind, and then he still keeps fighting. So there is a famous photo which we can see on the screen. This is, by the way, a book written by me on Abhimanyu. So it has the picture of Abhimanyu using the wheel and fighting. So after that he takes the mace and continues to fight, but the joint attack continues. And finally he has a last battle with the son of Dushasana. Now his name is generally referred to as Durmarshana, but we don't know very specifically whether that was the name. Anyway, there is a fight, both of them fall, but Dushasana's son gets up first, and Abhimanyu is lying on the ground, unarmed, helpless, but he kills him. So this is how the death happened, and Karna had no role in killing him other than breaking his arrow from behind and continuing to fire arrows at him. He did not participate in the actual killing. It was done by Dushasana's son. Neither was there a group attack on him to kill him. There was a group attack, yes, but not a group attack to kill him. And of course, the story of Karna refusing water is a complete myth. So this is the basic story of Abhimanyu. This is one of the basic myths. So now there are a couple of other myths that we would like to take up. So I would request Vijaykrishnan to take it up.
Yeah.
So before that, very quickly, this source from the Drona Parva, Abhimanyu Vada Parva, we can see 2 excerpts there. The first one, it says Dushasana's son was the one who killed. He struck Subhadra's son on the head with the club as he was about to get up. So, which means he was in a unarmed and helpless state. So that was a violation of the code of conduct of the war. Dushasana's son struck swiftly, and it says who all surrounded Abhimanyu. Drona, Krupa, Karna, Drona's son, Brihatbala, Kritavarma. 6 rathas surrounded Subhadra's son. And they ensured he was deprived of his chariot. Then Dushasana's son killed him. So this is the uh, facts about the killing of Abhimanyu. So next I would request Vijaykrishna to take it.
And also, just a quick thing in the clay Sanskrit library version of Karn Parv, when they are recounting the names of the warriors killed, the name of the Dushasan's son is given as Ran Durmud.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. So the two other myths regarding Abhimanyu that I'd like to dwell on are one that that's something everyone's familiar with thanks to movies, TV serials, and a lot of folklore, is that Abhimanyu learns about the Chakravyuha or how to break the Chakravyuha in his mother Subhadra's womb. Now this is actually not there in the Vyasa Mahabharata. So this is a story that comes in later folklore, specifically from the Andhra Mahabharata, Andhra folklore, and also finds a mention in the Bhil Mahabharata. The Bhils are a group of tribals who dwell in the central and western parts of India. So it comes in the Bhil Mahabharata as well as the Andhra Mahabharata, folk Mahabharata version. In the Mahabharata, that is the Vyasa Mahabharata, he just tells Yudhishthira that Arjuna has taught him to enter the Chakravyuha, but he does not know how to exit it. He also tells them that he'd be unable to exit it if any danger overtook him. No, mark the words. He is not confessing his, lack of courage or prowess. He is just stating the facts as to whether he can enter, as to and what are the conditions as to whether if he is faced with danger, he may not be able to exit. So he says, Upadishto hi me pitra, yogonika vishatani. That is, my father has taught me how to penetrate the Chakravyuha. And we don't have any details as to when this happens in the epic, because the epic after the Rajasuya, the scene swiftly moves towards the game of dice, and we don't have any specific mention or in a chapter where Arjuna teaches him the Chakravyuha. So we have this in kind of a flashback mode where Abhimanyu narrates this to Yudhishthira. So the story of Subhadra bearing him in his womb and then Abhimanyu hearing it from Arjuna is a part of later folklore. In fact, in the Bhil Mahabharata, there is an interesting story of how Abhimanyu is actually a demon who must be quelled for the good of the world. And Ekasura, right? So Krishna tries to keep him away from the knowledge of Chakravyuha. However, he gains knowledge for penetrating 6 arrays of the Chakravyuha in the Bhil Mahabharata. And finally, but Krishna prevents him from learning the whole thing. So these are all stories that have come as later additions to the epic through various traditions. So secondly, continuing on from this is very critical. While he mentions that he has learned how to penetrate the Chakravyuha from Arjuna, he does not know how to exit it. However, this does not have any impact on his prowess or his valor as he fights all the Kauravas within the Chakravyuha. He does not enter it even with an iota of fear. We must be very clear about that. So a lot of people make the assumption that because he was unable to, or he did not know how to exit the Chakravyuha, he was trapped in the Chakravyuha. No, he was not trapped. Somebody who was trapped would be helpless. Would have someone like a normal warrior would have been disarmed fairly quickly, or he would have better retreat. Now remember here, Abhimanyu is no ordinary warrior. Yes, he is the son of Arjuna. He's quite young, but he is among the class of warriors like Arjuna, Shri Krishna, and his son Pradyumna. So he is placed among the tete-a-tete, like he's among the elite rather. So he battles with almost all major Maharathis who are like twice, thrice his age. Even in the earlier days, prior to the 13th day, we've seen him valiantly battle even Bhishmacharya. So there are multiple instances. So there is an interesting series of attacks that he makes once he is within the Chakravyuha. It is not that he goes in and is trapped just because Jayadratha blocks the Chakravyuha Dwar. That is something we are shown in the serials and TV versions for lack of screen space. So here, let me list some key battles he has within the Chakravyuha. First, he attacks Shalya, the uncle of Nakula and Sahadeva, and he also kills the son of a warrior known as Asmaka. Next, when Shalya is unconscious, Shalya's brother comes to attack Abhimanyu. He even overthrows Shalya's brother. Next, so this is what is happening is a layer by layer attack within the Chakravyuha. So the Kauravas feel that the Chakravyuha is so impenetrable that they have Abhimanyu within their hands. But we must clearly observe how Abhimanyu breaks each line of defense put before him. So first Shalya comes, then Shalya's brother comes. Shalya's brother is followed by Dushasana. So there are details of even what number of arrows that he uses to defeat each person. So, for example, he hits Dushasana with 25 arrows. Then Karna follows. Karna is hit with a record 73 arrows, and his flagstaff is broken. Karna's younger brother is also slain by Abhimanyu. So all this happens, 3-4 warriors fall. Shalya is unconscious. Karna and Dushasana are defeated. And it is after that that Jayadratha enters the scene. That famous scene of Jayadratha blocking the doorway and not letting the other 4 Pandavas in. So that is a later event. So even before Jayadratha has kind of blocked the doorway to the Chakravyuha, Abhimanyu is having a merry time within the Chakravyuha, slaying Kauravas left and right, not to mention the ordinary soldiers. So even after Jayadratha has entered the scene, one would have thought that Abhimanyu is finally trapped. Now there is no chance for the poor guy. No, that's not the case. Well, even after Jayadratha enters the scene, he kills a slew of warriors. I mean, I'll just take some names. Vasatiya, Rukmaratha, all these are friends of Duryodhana. Eventually, he faces Duryodhana himself. And Duryodhana is said to flee. Duryodhana literally flees from Abhimanyu, not able to bear his attack. And lastly, towards the end, his major victories against Raja Brihadbala of Ayodhya. Brihadbala, interestingly, is a descendant
Dakshin
of Sri
Koshal.
Rama himself.
Dakshin
Yeah,
Koshal.
Dakshin Koshal, right.
Actually, yeah. The
So
Uttar Koshal was Dir Pragya and Surat. They were on the Panda side.
Right. Thanks, Pranshu, for mentioning that. So, Abhimanyu goes on to defeat Brihadbala of Dakshin Koshal, and critically, he also slays Lakshmana. Lakshmana is the son of Duryodhana. I think that is the tipping point in the 13th day battle, wherein Duryodhana is frustrated to no end, and then they form the strategy of the Kuta Yuddha, the Sankula Yuddha. Not Sankula Yuddha, I should say group attack. Even within the group attack, it is not that Abhimanyu can't handle these warriors. Even when they are attacking him from all sides, he is able to well reply to each one of them simultaneously. The devolvement begins only after Karna cuts his bowstring from behind. It is then that Abhimanyu takes a little bit of a backseat. But even then, he goes on fighting, and as we know, in the end, he is killed in a fair duel with Dushasana's son. Even certain versions like the Amachitrakatha show that both of them faint. Dushasana's son and Abhimanyu faint after the mace battle. But in the Mahabharata, it's pretty clear. He gains consciousness. It is just that in a split second, Duryodhana's son hits him on the head. So till the end, it is a pretty fair war. Neither was he trapped in the Chakravyuha, nor was it unfair except for just two perspectives. One, he was hit from behind. It is known as Vimukha. So as per Bhishmacharya's rules for the war, you should not hit someone who is not facing you. Number two, you should not hit someone with a lower order of weapons. So if you're fighting with a bow and arrow, you can fight with only someone who has a bow and arrow. You can't hit someone with a wheel.
Drona breaks his sword from behind using bow and arrow.
Yeah.
That was the second, yeah.
Right. That was the second. So these are the Vimukho and Shina Shastraha. These are the two rules specifically broken. The fact that it is a Kuta Yuddha and 6 warriors attack him from all sides is not actually unfair. It is not per se prohibited in the rules of war then. So what we might understand is Abhimanyu was no way trapped. It was a fair and fair battle except for a couple of instances that we mentioned right now. And in the end, it is a duel with Dushasana's son that leads to his downfall. So that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Vijay. So now that Abhimanyu is dead on day 13, we know that Arjuna takes a terrible oath. He says that he holds Jayadratha responsible for this, and he says that I'm going to kill him. And we know the events that happen and which we are going to discuss in detail in the next. But before that, there is something interesting we need to talk about, which is why did Arjuna get so agitated when Abhimanyu was killed? Now we know that his son Airavan also was killed, but we didn't see this kind of agitation. Of course, he was dejected, he was depressed, and but why was he so agitated that he took such an oath that he was ready to take his own life? So Bharti is there with us, and she would like to share her views on this. So can you
Yeah.
please go ahead,
Thank you,
Bharti?
Deepak. Yeah. Thank you, Deepak. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we
please.
can hear you.
Yeah. So, when you first read this chapter on Pratigya Parva, when Arjuna takes his vow, and then you see the battle on day 14, the first thing that strikes you is the sheer ferocity of Arjuna's attack. His reaction, the fact that this is the same Arjuna who has never really lost control in the battle, he's been pushed to the edge by Abhimanyu's death. This is something significant. And this is like you mentioned, it's not the first of the Pandava children to die at Kurukshetra. In fact, Arjuna's own son Iravan dies on day 8. The Pandavas grieve for him also, obviously, like they do for the Upa Pandavas later on. Arjuna also grieves, but he does not explode in rage like he does on day 14. The thing is, it's not just Abhimanyu's death that provokes Arjuna, but the manner of his death. So, neither Arjuna nor Abhimanyu are delusional. They don't think that if they come to a battle of Kurukshetra proportions, they're going to. Everybody, every warrior, in fact, on that field, every soldier is well aware that this moment would be his last moment on earth. So, the reason for Arjuna's explosion on day 14 is clear when we see that Abhimanyu was killed in a way where some levels of Kshatriya code were broken to finally kill the child. Also, Abhimanyu was young. He was not as experienced as the people who surrounded him at the last. Although finally he faced Dushasana's son, the people who he was surrounded with at the last were far more experienced than he was. And Arjuna's own acharyas, two of the acharyas were involved in the killing, which was not exactly very fair. They were just right there. They were the people who were entrusted with the responsibility of guiding people on how warfare is supposed to be done and how it is supposed to be done fairly. And still, this thing happened. And the greatest of the Kaurava warriors, including the acharyas as well as Ashwatthama, they were all involved in it. This is one reason for Arjuna's explosion. So we see that he lost his charioteer, Abhimanyu had lost his charioteer, his chariot, his main weapons, and he had already been badly injured and exhausted after a day long battle, although he was pretty much decimating the forces even in that state. He had no support there either. He is surrounded by the enemy. And it is under these circumstances that six of the Kauravas mightiest think that they can still attack him and it will still be fair. The idea that the Kauravas stooped to that level at that point, irrespective of whether Abhimanyu was able to beat them back or not, the idea, the notion that Kauravas mightiest thought that it was quite fair to do that. Because if you see Bhishma's last battle, Bhishma is a veteran of how many ever battles, he's the most experienced of them all. Even in Bhishma's last battle, he had support troops all around him. Dushasana was there, trying valiantly fighting off Arjuna until quite some time, backing him up. Then Duryodhana keeps sending different warriors to take the heat of Bhishma. And he is, like I said, a veteran. But in Abhimanyu's case, that was not the case. He was cut off from the Pandava army and he was still fighting, thanks to Jayadratha, of course. This is why, of course, the second part is this is why Arjuna's rage is directed at Jayadratha also. Jayadratha is the reason why Abhimanyu fought and died alone there. And Jayadratha's life had been spared by the Pandavas earlier. These, I feel, are the two things that actually pushed Arjuna to that level where he realized that these Kauravas, although they knew that the Kauravas were never very great at keeping to ethics and all that, this level to which that they could go, and this level that even Drona, Kripa, and Ashwatthama would go, this probably pushed him to that kind of rage, the very manner.
And he was
I
actually he was a very firm believer in Yudhishthir. Like Arjun used to back Yudhishthir up unquestionably. And he basically understood that Yudhishthir gave that 13, 14 years for them to reform. And they did that thing in the Sabha. And the same way, the same Drona, Krip, Ashwatthama were standing there and doing a second thing again. That sort of broke him. Like that broke his faith literally in
yeah,
these people that they
yeah,
are
yeah,
evil. And that's where he basically chose, and he chose the person basically Jayadratha, again another person they had spared the life of, given him a second chance.
yeah,
So they deliberately chose Jayadratha. And I'm telling you, if Jayadratha had run away, they would have chosen somebody else. They would have
yeah,
chosen a target and put him right there and say that we are going to kill him. And that was a very strategic tactical. And that's also the thing, like Arjun is angry, but his mind is also working on how to inflict the maximum pain he can do. And that's where he basically takes that oath. Also shows his confidence level.
yeah. And the Kauravas essentially see a repeat. Probably the Kauravas also are kind of pushed to that level where Drona, Kripa agree to do this, because they are seeing a actual repeat of what happened at Matsya. Brihanala
Yes.
trashed them. Now Abhimanyu is doing the same thing single-handed,
Exactly. He's the
and
same
not
level
one
warrior.
Kaurava is able to stand before him.
Yeah, he was the same
And
level
If they do
warrior.
not
Abhimanyu
stop him,
is
he
doing
cannot
it in
take
a
on
much
the
more
battle.
violent way. Ah.
Yes.
And there is this real fear in them that if this child, he's a child and he's an inexperienced child, this inexperienced child manages to escape alive after doing this to them, I mean, nearly crushing the whole Kaurava army, their morale will be like gone, it will be non existent. And this is perhaps what propels the Acharyas to also condone this and participate in the killing. The last attack, which happens when this guy is already like Drona is taking off his sword and somebody shoots off his shield. This is entirely and it is appalling for acharyas to be doing this kind of thing. It's Drona who gives Karna the idea to cut off his bow because that guy can't be stopped as long as he has his bow in his hand. It's Drona who gives that idea. And all of these things, I guess, is probably they are propelled by the fear that this guy is going to, they have just come off from tasting Matsya. And now Abhimanyu is doing that in front of so many of their allies as well. Despite all of this, ironically, Arjuna does a repeat performance of Matsya on day 14 with exponentially greater violence, and there is really nothing Kauravas can do to stop him from killing Jayadratha, despite all their attempt.
So
So,
the killing
yeah,
of
more
Abhimanyu
about
was the
Jayadratha.
biggest mistake they did, actually.
Yeah, that's what they didn't expect that this would be the outcome of it, I
And,
guess.
and they had no
Killing
other
force of
option
it.
also. So once when he had come in and he had destroyed their sort of forces inside, if he had gone alive at that point in time, that would have been end of the war also, because
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
as Bharti said, the allies would have just lost all confidence in this team.
No,
And if
and
he had remained
another
alive
one
beyond
thing,
that, he would have finished them.
yes, he would have
Abhimanyu
killed one of
was
the big
showing no
warriors.
signs of stopping. He would
Yes.
have
He
finished
may
them
even
at
have
that
killed
point of
someone.
time.
We don't know.
We
He may
don't. We
have killed
really.
someone.
He might have done that, or at least a few of the top warriors he might have finished
Yes,
off.
definitely.
Because even though he was exhausted and wounded and didn't have weapons, he was still quite potent for them. So he wasn't stopping anytime soon. So
Yeah, with the sword
I'll
alone,
give
he
it to
killed like
Pranshu.
four, five brothers of Shakuni, right? Like the
Yeah,
Gandhar warriors and everything. So with the sword itself, he was.
Mace also.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So
So
I'll
thank you
give
so
it to
much, Bharti,
Pranshu
for
now.
sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
News.
thanks.
We hope to see you again in one of the future
Yes,
episodes.
I will hope to be here also. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
So let's go to the next myth, which is day 14, where we go to the killing of Jayadratha. So now the myth is that Krishna caused a solar eclipse and he used that to help Arjuna kill Jayadratha. So the story is that the war was progressing and uh, Arjuna was not able to kill Jayadratha. It was nearly sunset. So that's when Krishna used his Sudarshan Chakra and he blocked the sun, creating an eclipse. And then the Kauravas, they took it easy and then Krishna took the chariot towards Jayadratha and Arjuna killed him. So that is a popular story and it has been shown in many TV sessions also. What are the real facts? So let's hear from Pranshu.
Right. So basically, in the Northern edition in Gita Press, in Critical Edition, there's no mention of the solar eclipse in actuality at all. There is darkness mentioned, but that is in a different context, and we will come to it when we will be describing it. And that is when actual darkness had fallen, much
Yeah,
after
just
that.
one point. In KMG, Krishna says that he's going to create an eclipse, but then he doesn't follow it up. It doesn't talk. In fact, it says that the sun is going to set, so go ahead, he says.
No,
Sun
no.
is reaching us.
I'm sure. No, a great warrior and a great strategist, and Krishna was one of the greatest strategists there is. Would have a plan B, C, and D in his back pocket, right?
That's right.
So yeah, so there was no. I mean, yes, the if needed, Krishna would have done that, but he never did that, and that is the main story, because that's why in the critical edition in that, and in the Gita Press, basically there's no at all mention of the end of the darkness or the end of the day itself. And actually, when we'll go through the events in detail, you'll see that actually after killing Jadhav, there was plenty of time for a series of second set of battles actually to have taken place before the actual darkness fell. And and I think the best way to and we can go to the slide, Deepak ji, about that the map, right? So you see, for one of the biggest issues, basically what they threaten a major core of warrior, right? And so instead of thinking aggressively, Chorus thought, and especially Drone here, thought very defensively. So he put together a view, and this whole area is 48 miles long. So from the beginning of the Shakat main gate to the where Jadad was sitting, the 48 miles was the gap. So he basically used the entire breadth, including the Korwa war camp, and he basically used that and put him so much behind, 48 miles behind. That itself will take some time, reaching there. The length of the whole length of the whole front is around 20 miles. So you are basically looking at like a size of a district, right? And there he put in what Geeta Press very nicely calls, translated in Hindi as Chakra Shakat view. So there are actually three views in here. We have a Shakat main view. Shakat is our bullock cart. So you see that those blue arrows are like the wheels of the Shakat. They are supposed to move the view forward. Views are very aggressive, mobile structures. They are made up of elephants, horses, chariots, and foot soldiers. They are supposed to be mobile, and that's why they are effective when they are fighting each other. Uh, Unfortunately, the TV series and everything sort of shows them as a very static constructs, basically because of obviously how you want to shoot it. They don't spend much time about CGI in it, but they are very aggressive and moving objects. So think of these blue lines as the two wheels of the shakat, sort of moving the whole shakat forward. But drone does not use that. Drone uses shakat as a defensive paradigm here, and at the point 12 miles, there he constructs a second chakra view. So there is a chakra view behind his shakat view, which is basically needs to be protected by the shakat view. You can't reach the chakra view without getting through the shakat view, right? So shakat view is rendered immobile. So drone makes this very cardinal mistake of actually giving the mobility away here. And then inside that, he construct another sushi mukh view. Basically, think of it a narrow defile lined on the sides of the sides of those defile is it's called Suchimugyo. So the sides of the defile are those 100,000 elephants, 60,000 chariots, or 60,000 elephants, 100,000 chariots lining there, and the end of it is Jadrat protected by around 10 9 Maharathis, and then the 30 plus brothers of Duryodhan. So this is where basically Jadrat is sitting, and this is where Drone is. So Drone is at the beginning at the Shakat main gate. And actually, if you look at it, so as the day progresses, the Kaurav army actually starts falling back. And so the second, like Kitvarma sort of creates as a second view inside the Shakat view, trying to protect and save. Because once Arjun breaks through the first view, breaks through Drone, and he goes through Kitvarma, he breaks through Kitvarma also, and he goes right through. Then you look at the other sections, right? When Satyaki breaks in, at that point in time, they are already slightly behind. They're not at the front line. Kauravas have already given away a lot of land at that point in time. A lot of their front line at that time has been damaged. So they are already sort of in the middle of the near the Kitvarma's line or something. When Satyaki breaks through, then he goes through the Kamboj armies and everything. And same thing. Arjun first goes through. He goes through whole of the front, the whole Shakat, about 30 miles of Shakat right through, and now our chariots, the Arjun's chariot was 44, 46 feet high. So the pataka at the top of it was 46 feet high. You can see it from 8 miles away, 1 yojana. So that's actually also there in our. That's also the heights. That's exactly why the heights of the chariots at the Jagannath temple are exactly that heights, 46 and
Hmm.
44 feet. So like Jagannath is slightly higher. The Arjuna chariot is 44 feet. So that basically you can see it about 8 miles, 13 kilometers away. So
Pranshu, shall I put on the next slide? The
yeah,
detailed
yeah.
of
Put it
the.
on the next slide. Yeah. So, so if you look at that, so Arjun, so when Arjun first he goes through at the beginning of it, not only they have basically 48 miles of the front, in front of the Pandav, between the Pandav and the Kaurav armies, there is a gap of 1,500 bows. That is also mentioned in both critical edition, and that's 1,500 bows is around 3,000 meters. I mean, almost 2 miles. So basically, uh, that is the area where the Kaurav brothers, they first do the first only aggressive action Kauravs do in that part of this on this day. Actually, they attack Arjun, but Arjun munch like sort of chews through that Kaurava defense forces immediately, and then he slams into Drona. He fights a lot of time with Drona, but he's also sort of breaking the Kaurav armies around Drona, making a way for him. And then he breaks, and then he basically says, Drona asks him to stop. He basically, says, "No, sir, you are my guru," and he leaves Drona and he goes inside, and then he tackles Kritvarma. And now Kritvarma sort of realizes that now we have made a mistake. We have too long a view. So first thing, the 48 miles, they still have only 11 Akshanis. Right? They have a X number of soldiers, and now you have spread them thinly across, such a huge, vast lines. So that what happens is it allows the Pandav warriors when they all three advance. First Arjun, then Satyaki and Bhim. That allows them to basically pick up speed, zoom through, hit the Kaurva front lines, puncture through, then go to the next. They're so much far apart because because thinking to save Jayadratha, they put him too much behind. Instead of putting him, say, maybe like 15 miles behind and packing it all in. But instead of packing it all in, instead of making a dense mass of soldiers, Drone actually makes it a very long, amorphous mass. That's again the mistakes they have. They are a bigger army, they are a larger army. They actually have been attacking. Pandas have been on a defense throughout. Before the war started, Arjun had said we will be fighting in a defensive posture all throughout. Whatever killing we do is incidental to defending our soldiers. So that basically is the whole pattern here, that Pandas were holding the lives of the ordinary soldier as very important, as a part of their team, where Kauravas were using these soldiers as pawns. And this is where the thinking is different, right? And that is where adharm and dharm, right? One side is on the side of dharm, the other side is on the side of adharm. Dharm basically is the society itself, including those soldiers, the foot soldiers, and everything. So that's where the Kauravas make a mistake. Now, Kritvarma sort of rallies and creates a second sort of a view behind. He wastes some time. He even stops Yudhamanyu and Utmoja at that point in time. But Arjun bypasses him, goes through, kills Shutayu, Achutayu, Shutayudh, another Shutayu. So all of those basically, warriors Arjun takes care of, and he basically gets into Avantis, and at that point in time, Duryodhan comes and he is basically livid at Drona. Drona is still at the Shakat View main gate. Pandav armies are trying to push in. There is Arjun sprinting through the whole Shakat, the body of the bullock cart, right? Literally sprinting through that and towards the Chakravyu. And so Duryodhan comes and he quarrels. He basically complains against to Drona, and Drona gives him this armor and sends him back to fight Arjun. Now, at that point in time, around so you have the prahars, the four prahars. So the first prahar is 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., the sunrise to around 10 a.m., 3 hours. Then the second prahar starts, which is around 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So this is around the time, basically, and at that 1 p.m., the Surya starts going to Astachal. So, your high noon has crossed. So we are given a very clear point here that Duryodhan around high noon comes and complains to Drona that, look, Arjun is chewing through our army in the back here. What are you doing sitting in the front? So Drona sends him back to fight him. At that point in time, Arjun's horses have been running for 6 hours. And Arjun, and this is again, I would say that, Mahabharata is a battle to be studied in the business schools. He takes that he has 5 6 hours left of sunlight. He has half the distance or maybe more distance left. He uses the time to give 48 minutes rest to his horses. He constructs a whole, like a house of arrows, where Krishna is able to tend to these horses, give them malish, give them on that stop, and they are ready for it. So he uses whatever time is left. He uses portion of it to give that final sprint he needs towards the end. So again, at this point, this is noon. Literally, there's still a 5 6 hours left. Arjun is utilizing the time here. Later on, I may not have that time, but I'm using some of the time right now. And that's and that point in time also he fights the Avanti forces and he kills them. And that's where Duryodhan comes and fights him. Now, when Duryodhan comes, Krishna says, "Yeah, kill him now, man. This guy, finish him off. Let's finish this fight here and then." But then when Arjun shoots the arrows at Duryodhana, it bounces back because he's wearing that armor from Indra, basically, which Drona had inherited through his through Agnivesh, his guru. So so he realizes Duryodhana is wearing that armor, and Duryodhana is able to stop him. So there's a huge upheaval in the Kaurav camps. Like all of a sudden, hey, we have stopped Arjun, and hey, and Duryodhana has stopped him. So there's a big shouts and everything at this point in time. Now here we actually have an issue here. The narrator is Sanjay, and Arjun is actually quite far, about 20-25 miles, into 24 miles actually plus away, maybe a little more than that, into the uh, Kaurava lines. Sanjay is stuck with Drone. So Sanjay is there at the view gate, and if you look at that, I think it went. Yeah, sorry. So Sanjay is at the view gate at that point, and he's part of that battles which are fighting around Drone. So he's describing those in detail. So here we actually, I mean, he does tell us some of the conversations of Krishna and Arjun, which is basically information he probably collated from the other sources before he went back to tell Dhritarashtra that this is what happened. But you see, from a point of view of a journalist, right there, he's actually stuck with Drone for some time here. So he's actually talking, describing a lot more information on what's happening in the front lines. So in the front lines, the Pandavas are fighting with Drone and Kritvarma and trying to break in. A lot of battles are happening, say, and it's across the length. Like Bhim defeats Alambusha, he runs across the length. He doesn't go back into the view. He runs across the front line, runs into Gatotkach, runs back into the Bhim and the others already, and then Alambusha is killed right there and there. So you see, so that's where Drone is, and he's still fighting there. Now, at that point in time, Yudhishthir is a little bit worried because he's hearing a lot of victorious sounding noises from the distance, from the Kaurav camp. So he brings in Satyaki and says, Satyaki, please go and help Arjun. So this is after about 1 p.m. at least, and slightly even after that, because you see, after 1 p.m., that 48-minute rest period for the horses and some more time killing the Avanti princes and everything, the Avanti Akshani, little bit of that has already been happened. So and Arjun is, and Pandavas have advanced a little. Pandavas already advanced at 1500 bow lengths. That's their front line. They've taken the Shakadview gate. They are slightly ahead actually. They're fighting where Drona and Kritvarma are not together. So Drona has also already lost the first front lines he had constructed. So they are fighting inside the middle bit. And Satyaki says Arjun is around 24 miles ahead. I mean, they can't see the chariot. 24 miles, because as you see, Earth curves. Assuming the Mahabharata takes place in our Earth, it is taking place in our Earth. So they obviously can't see him. They can hear the Panjanya Shank. They can't hear the Arjun's Gandiv. So he sends Satyaki. Now here it's a whole preparation also. Takes some time. Satyaki is a little bit confident in his guru. He takes a bath. He wears a new armor. He puts in 5 times the number of arrows and other instruments on his rath than is normally he puts in a day of battle, because he's going deep into the core of camp. There'll be no supplies available. There'll be no supply line, no chakras with the bullocks coming in and refilling the arrows and everything. He's filling everything up. Again, the second part of it is making a chariot heavier, but he is also like a little bit confident. And then he punches through. Drona again stops him. He goes through. Satyaki goes right through. And you can see that this is around basically, we are into Apraha Kal. It is very clearly mentioned, Apraha Kal. The third Prahar has started. And at that point in time, Satyaki has punched through and has left Drona behind. He spent some time with Drona. Now, in each of these situations, in the first situation, what had happened was when Arjun had first broken through, Drona makes a very cardinal error. He goes behind to chase Arjun. What happens is you're commander in chief, you are a strategic leader, and Drona thinks tactically, but he's wearing the command. He's like in a football game, right? He's wearing the captain's, stripe here, right? And he doesn't realize that, and he chases behind. So the Kaurav armies who are with him, they get confused a little. They say, what do we do? Do we follow the commander in chief back? He's thinking tactically. He's trying to stop Arjun, one guy. And this is also shown in the first beginning also, that how the Kauravas, when they first attacked Arjun also, they were only focused on Arjun. They all basically try to shoot at only Arjun, and Arjun is able to block them and everything. That is fine. But because they're all shooting at one person only, they are killing each other also. They are getting in each other's shooting lines. So that was another thing basically, which, because they never were in such a situation where they were actually in a defense mode before. So they had not really practiced for it. They were all Pradarshani warriors. They had gone and sat in there and boasted about that. Yeah, I won this battle, this duel, that duel. They never were tactically. They were never in a tactical situation like this. So Drona also, he turns back at that point. He breaks open his front forces, the Shakat view armies, into literally three portions. One portion is actually handled immediately by Jalsand, the son of Jarasandh, who was on the Kaurav side, and the other portion, basically Kritvarma portion. And then Drona realizes what he has done mistake, and he tries and he brings the third one over. And actually, that's why these Kaurav army is basically split into three portions and then destroyed eventually by the Pandavas as they climb, as they walk through the Shakat view. So that's another part of it. Now, when Satyaki also breaks through, Drona also tries to go back a little. Now, here we have a situation where when Satyaki is going through, he fights Dushasan 5-6 times. Even like so. Now here, now you are seeing the critical edition, northern edition, and I haven't read Dakshinatya in that detail in this section, but they agree on one thing: the sequence is exactly the same as that is described, but the sequence described is not exactly as the hour by hour description is, because in the first attacks, when Kritvarma stops after Satyaki goes through, Kritvarma stops them. Then there's another section of Satyaki fighting Kritvarma. Now, either they could be two Satyakis, they could be Satyaki's son who would be fighting there, and there's a mistake here, and there's an A missing or O missing or something, and so that's why we don't know. Or the point is that they are reiterating this. They're putting the timestamp correctly. The Sanjay is trying to correct the timestamp. So he goes right through. He Satyaki. Then he basically uh, uh, finds Duryodhan there. Now, what has happened was Arjun, hours earlier, had fought Duryodhan. He realized Duryodhan can't be beaten, so he starts shooting him these small, nice arrows, and these arrows would hit between the nail and the skin, and hit him there or hit on the palm and everything. And so Duryodhan ran out of the battlefield, wringing his hands and then he ran away from the battlefield. So that's why Arjun had broken through, and then Arjun had gone ahead and he had broken into Chakravyuh. He's fighting ahead. Now Satyaki meets Duryodhan. Duryodhan has come back to the battlefield. So Satyaki meets him at this point in time. He beats him also. And again, a very, very nice analogy, Vyas is structuring here is that Chakra Shakat view, it's literally that this is a day which basically decides the war. This is a day which decides the triumph of Dharma. Chakra Shakat is literally the the temple constructed for the triumph of Dharma. And literally, if you think about it, Arjun comes, beats Duryodhan, Satyaki comes, beats Duryodhan, Bhim comes, he beats Duryodhan, Yudhamanyu, Utmoja, they enter Chakravyuh, they beat Duryodhan. It's literally like, he's the mandir ka ghanta, everybody baja ke ja raha hai usko. so so that basically is a very clear mass here, so when Satyaki now goes through, Satyaki also now travels outside the time. Now by that time, Satyaki has gone in and he is now attacking, going inside. Now at chapter 124 in the sequence, in the Gita press, for example, in chapter 124, Satyaki sees Arjun and Krishan, and he basically announces something. They're too far ahead. Yudhishthira still can't hear. Now at this point in time, Pandav armies have stretched in. Drona has actually retreated back. Drona is at a 24-mile point. Drona is like halfway into the Shakat. He has given away half of his area. He's trying to recuperate the armies which are behind. Like when Arjun had gone through, and even when Satyaki goes through, he actually even tells his charioteer in between, "Hey, buddy, go a little slow." Arjun has like literally created a huge devastation across the whole battlefield. Like Satyaki is making getting it easy, but he also wants to clear out easy. So he actually asks his charioteer to go slow. At this point in time, also they are in Apraha Kal. Satyaki gets the feeling we have got it. We do not need to really rush it. Let's do it clearly. Now there's a second point about it also. They have to go through the 48 miles. They have to come back through 48 miles also. So if you are making the hole, you have to make the hole wide enough that when you come back, also you are coming back through demoralized enemy troops who will try to kill you at the end of the day, right? So Satyaki takes his time. He This is where you get this whole thing where he completes the destruction of so many Akshanis, the Bahali, Karns Akshani, the Southerns, Ashmak, the all the Malechas, and the two others, Avanti. All these Akshanis are basically destroyed at this, and Kamboj. The whole these Akshanis are destroyed by Satyaki at this point in time. He completes the destruction. Arjuna has done something. Satyaki completes it, and now Satyaki goes in. In chapter 124, Satyaki sees Arjun and Krishna. In chapter 141, Krishna acknowledges Satyaki has reached. You see, because how the structure of the story is done is the person asking the question is Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra had asked in between, what did Satyaki do? I have heard. So that's the thing, that Dhritarashtra is getting some other news also at the same time from other people. And so he actually asks a question. Now there could be some shlokas missed out in the northern Parv, and also in critical edition, where maybe the Sanjay himself has given some more information about Satyaki's valor and everything. But so this is where Dhritarashtra actually stops Sanjay when Arjun is going inside and careening right towards Jayadratha. He stops him and says, "Hey, tell me about this guy. Tell me about what happens to what Satyaki." The same thing happens at this point in time is Satyaki कहते हैं Dhritarashtra asks a question about Drona, and now Pandavas have gone through and 24. So in that, when Pandav army is now actually slightly behind, now they are catching up. They're going through totally broken Kaurva lines towards now the middle gate, like at the 24-mile point where Drona and Kritvarma have sort of created a second set of gates, 24 to 30 miles behind the front lines. So Panchals, the 5 Panchal princes, reach there first. Drone kills them, which is okay. When they basically ran ahead, they got in, they died. They are trying to break through these lines also, and then the second group comes in. Now here, this is where Drone does a big thing. He kills one after the other. He kills all the top guys from the first. He gets the Kekai, then he gets Dishketu's son. Then he gets Sadev of Magad, and he defeats Chekitan, and he kills some more Panchal princes also. So at this point in time, where Pandav, a lot of officers are right there, but you see, Pandav armies are not faltering at all. They are continuing the fight. They're losing their officers, but the next guy just steps up. Okay, it's my turn now. It's my turn now. They basically are not panicking or running away or anything like that. And at this point in time, where he's just lost like several of his main officers, Yudhishthir is worried about Satyaki and Arjun, yet he can't see them because now Satyaki has gone another 8 miles in. You can't see Satyaki's flag out at all, right? Because that's his Dhwaj is no longer visible at that point in time. So he basically tells Bhim, buddy, go and find out what's happened there. Now Bhim goes through very fast. So this is around 4 p.m. after the Apraha Kal is ended. The last prayer has started. Bhim punches through, and in this punching through, he's just hitting like, shoot 35, shoot 36, 37, shoot. That's like 11 Kaurav princes dead. He goes in right through the Chakravyuh, and he then shouts a big, and he sees Satyaki and Arjun both, and he shouts a huge lion roar, telling Yudhishthir that he's there. This is one of the 4 lion roars which are going to come in the next 3 hours. So now that this is where the point is. Krishna and Arjun's conversation that Satyaki is here is no longer there. But Bhim comes, sees both of them, makes a lion roar. Arjun and Krishna sees Bhim. They do a lion roar equally. Satyaki does a lion roar. All of them do a lion roar. It goes back, and Yudhishthira is happy. Okay, I'm now, and he continues to, press upon this front, the middle front now, which Drone is fighting on. And now Drone is no longer basically part of the story. Now we are here. Dhritarashtra again goes in for the our iconic conflict, the India Pakistan test match, the Karna Bhim, the Bhim Karna fight, basically. And they have this series of 7 duels. And the Bhim defeats Karna in the first duel, and he launches a second lion roar. So which basically tells that we have won a victory. So Yudhishthir is like constantly getting reassured now from Bhim. So Arjun is now at this point in time, Arjun is already fighting the 8 warriors around Jayadratha. So this is 3 hours. I mean, Beam reaches there. Maybe he started around 4 p.m. By 4:30, 4:45. I mean, I would take it in 24-minute intervals. By 5 o'clock almost, Beam is there, and he sees and he tells Arjun is there. Everything is fine. We are all good. And at that point in time, his duels with Karna start, and there are a series of these about 7 duels. And in the middle of the fourth duel, uh, this is a this is where now in the sequence how the story is structured. Sanjay finishes the whole battle story of Bhim and Karna, but actually goes across the time. This includes a time where Karna actually goes back and gets a rub down. He gets a rub down and he gets a red, like he's fighting Bhim. And in the second battle, in the second first duel with Bhim, he loses. He comes back with a second duel. In that, he breaks Bhim's armor. Bhim's armor is totally gone, and he basically wounds Bhim a lot. And Bhim hits him back, and Karna again retires, leaves the battlefield. Bhim puts on a new armor. So Bhim has a second armor in his battlefield. He basically puts it on. He continues the fight. The third duel happens. Karn again loses. Fourth duel happens. Karn again loses. Or sort of fourth duel is sort of a Karn sort of leaves. There's not like clear sense. And he moves away for a few minutes, and Bhim kills 7, 8 princes in between. So that's where he comes back. So I'm saying, so there is like the fifth duel. At the fifth duel, where he kills Vikrana and all the group in that group, at that point in time, it is very clear that uh, Bhim launches, and so Bhim kills Vikrana in critical edition. Those shlokas are not there, but in the Gita press, Bhim kills Vikrana. He's very upset at it, and he talks a little bit about to Vishok about having to kill Vikrana, and Vikrana had been a nice guy, and the war is such a meaningless, senseless place where sometimes good people have to die because they have chosen for their whatever their choices and actions and everything. And he's sad, and suddenly Bhim puts in a lion roar of success. This and Yudhishthir hears it, and Yudhishthir launches a full attack on Drona's front. This shlok gets repeated again when Arjun kills Jayadratha 5 chapters later. So this is actually where your location time wise is the same shlok is getting repeated. Means that this is where the Vashampayan is telling us how these line up. They're telling the whole story in one go, but then they are telling the story also in a chronological order. So now the story then shifts to what happens to Satyaki. Satyaki, when he reaches behind chapter 125 chapters, chapter 141, we pick up Satyaki again. So 16 chapters in between, Bhim is there. Bhim, Karna, everything is there. But, well, Drone and others also. So like 12 chapters of Bhim, Karna, 4 chapters of Drone and other fighting. And then 16 chapters later, Krishna says, "Oh, Satyaki is here, buddy." Arjun is a little unhappy about it. Bhurishrava attacks Satyaki. There's a big fight. They lose their battles. They lose their chariots. Satyaki's chariot is gone. They lose everything, and then they are fighting, and they do Mallayudh. And they do Mallayudh with 32 different types of pathres and everything. So there's a big section of this fight between Bhurishrava and Satyaki. It takes, you could say, it's a pretty lengthy time. But I think that's the time which is also happening where Bhim is catching up and then Bhim is fighting Karn. So this is happening in parallel. And then Bhurishrava dies. Bhurishrava is killed. Satyaki kills him, and all sorts of things, like people are like on both sides that whether he's done a wrong thing or right thing. There's also a lot of backstory about Satyaki and Bhurishrava. uh, Bhurishrava, like Karn and Draupadi. There's the Bhurishrava and Subhadra story, where basically Satyaki had always taken a pledge to kill Bhurishrava. in critical edition also they basically in that's in Vayang, sorry, in Vayang, but in critical edition Sataki had taken a pledge that whoever hits him on the chest with his foot, I'm going to kill him. So basically, that's there also. So Sataki kills Bhurishava, and then a new chariot, because they here the new chariot is available. So the new chariot comes in, and Sataki uses that chariot to later on to pick up Bhim. But in between, Arjun had gone ahead and killed, and they're saying time is night, time is night. Arjun, Krishna is advising him, and Arjun basically kills Jayadratha, puts his head all the way, throws arrows after arrows with it, and that goes out and lands at Saman Panchak Tirth at his father Bhatshatra's lap. And Bhatshatra puts it on the ground, and Bhatshatra also dies. So Arjun, after that point in time, Kripacharya, Karna attacks Arjun. So no, so this is actually slightly before actually he attacks Arjun, and then Bhim he starts fighting with Bhim for a long period, right? So this is chronologically we are now coming together. We are weaving it everything together. In the seventh, duel these guys have, Bhim hits Karna so hard with his arrows in this chest, Karna faints, and he's actually for more than do ghadi, to more than two cycles, right? 48 minutes. Karna is actually sleeping, literally. He's and Bhim doesn't kill him or anything. He continues whatever they're doing. Karna gets up, and then he breaks Bhim's string. So Bhim's charity, so at this point in time they're very tired. This is actually, now if you look at time, how the at 5 o'clock or so, if they had started fighting and they've already gone through six duels, this is seven duel, this is around 8 p.m. The sun is already set, because at this point in time, yeah, Vijaykrishnan, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So what I'd like to point out is, at the point where Arjuna kills Jayadratha, it is not an eclipse at all. Even in the KMG and
Yeah.
the Gita Press editions, it is mentioned in a dual fashion.
Yeah.
Even though the verses say that Krishna uses his Maya to create an avarana or something, it is specific in its impact. Jayadratha is able to see the sunset. Only Jayadratha is able to see the sunset, and the others see darkness. So the realization for the others is also not very clear. They see darkness and they start rejoicing. But the sun is actually not set, neither is there an eclipse. That's the point I'd like to bring up.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, and actually, a lot of time is still left. So that's what I'm saying. He actually, there's a lot of time still left in the battle, because you see, the darkness is there. Is that when Bhim is actually out of weapons, so
Hmm.
he actually at that point in time, they are thinking of retreating. Bhim sends
Hmm.
Vishok over to Yudhamanyu's chariot. If you think at that point, with his bow without the string, but that bow is
Okay.
from the he's got one of those divine bows, right? Bhim. So
Okay.
he saves the bow also. So Vishok and the bow runs away to the Yudhamanyu's chariot. Bhim is
Hmm.
alone. He loses all his weapons. He actually then jumps onto Karna's chariot,
Hmm.
and he's on top of the Karna's chariot. He's holding onto the Karna's Rathadand. Karna hides in the chariot. Now, how big of that chariot can be? It's total darkness at this point. This is 8 o'clock. This is after 8 p.m. or something. There's no sun there. There's no lamps and everything. They're saying the lights are actually coming from the gold worn by the warriors. So here the Karna is hides himself so in that sequence, it's very clear. And also in between, in the fight between Karna and Bhim, what was happening was Karna started hitting soldiers like shooting so wildly that his own armies ran away. So when Bhim and Karna are fighting, they are actually alone in that area. And when Karna chases Bhim also, Arjun actually sends a Narach Ban to kill Karna, like he did for Bhurishava. But Ashwathama stops it.
Hmm.
Ashwathama manages to see it, and he manages to stop it. So now here, if you look at the whole sequence, I put that sign there, that purple sign, that he
Yeah.
probably died. And after Jadar dies, that's when Ashwathama and Krip again fight Arjun for some time. And at
Hmm.
that point in time, Arjun defeats them. Kripacharya is actually literally on a Banashaya himself. He falls onto his chariot covered with arrows. So actually, Arjun says that Kripacharya is also on a Banashaya, and I have to do that to my poor guru, like that. Like
Hmm.
he's sad about it, and he defeats Ashwatthama also. So and then they proceed towards Arjun. Yudhishthir has broken through. Yudhishthir is very close now to what they're. he's there. The Chakravyuh is in tatters.
Hmm.
Yudish- and Pandavas are not going back, and that's where basically the point is ki all this even the last sections of that Karna, Satyaki comes, picks up Bhim. Karna attacks at that point in time also, and there's several times of the 14 day Karna has come and fought Arjun also a couple of times already. So that's actually comes later in our next thing, right? When we'll
Hmm.
we will talk about that Vasavi Shakti.
Yeah.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
didn't he use Vasavi Shakti just to protect Jayadratha? He was right there in front of Jayadratha, right?
Right.
So, and this is where the point is that Jayadratha was protected by so many Kaurav princes that Bhim literally sort of pulls the Karna in a sort of a like a lion, like a hunter basically ties a bakri, and then all these uh, and attracts all the lions, right? And so one by
Hmm.
one the Kaurav princes came, and 31 of them were massacred there. So that basically is again he's taking away the effect of it. And even when Bhim and Karna are fighting, even Jadra is saying sadhu sadhu, like they're enjoying the fight. They're all these 10 warriors around. Yudhamanyu, Utmoja are already there. And so this is a very, this is very interesting here. So Yudhamanyu and Utmoja are there with their, and they lose their chariots inside the Kaurav Pandav inside the Kaurav lines, but they get other chariots. So they basically hijack. So this is your probably first ever carjacking or chariot jacking happening in history, where they catch some Kaurav warrior and they take his chariot.
Take
So,
his
but they
chariot.
continue inside. In case of
Hmm.
Satyaki, obviously, he had two extra chariots coming with him, and the Pandavas are not close enough. Draupades are right there. Now, there's
Hmm.
another story, interesting point I actually was wanted to mention was Draupades are not mentioned much because you see, Vashampayan is telling the story to Janamjaya. Janamajaya,
Hmm.
he's one lineage, right? There are other lineages
Right.
also, probably in fight lineages contesting for the chief's Chandravansh throne and everything.
Huh.
Because Jatakas tell the story of these two other Kuru princes, and Kaksh Sen is their cousin of Janamjaya who comes in and helps him during this Sarp Satra also. So they don't try to do that. But if you look at it, when initially, if you look at top bar where Arjun is there, right? When Arjun reaches Jayadratha
Hmm.
and he's fighting the 9 warriors alongside who is protecting Jayadratha, one of them is Shal. And
Okay.
two chapters later, the Draupades kill Shal. And towards the end also, when Jayadratha dies, Draupades are mentioned again right there. So Draupades probably
Okay.
also went in. They also probably went in with Arjun or Yudhamanyu or but like they were there when
Utmoja.
the killing of Shal, right? So this is a very because when Bhurishrava is fighting, so this is again I think its chronological sequences are little because Sanjay is putting together sources, right? It was a big battlefield, lot of moving parts,
So many
and he
parallel battles.
yeah, and he's putting it together all the stories. So he actually even says I think Shal is still alive when Bhurishava is fighting Satyaki, but Shal is dead 25 chapters back.
Hmm.
So the point is maybe Shal died right towards the end, where when these guys also reached there. So
Yeah.
at one point he just wants to rush through. Okay, this guy got killed, Veer Verma got killed, Veer Ketu got killed, Veer Dhanwa got killed. He's Sanjay is just relating just for the sake of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, your these cousins, your these friends, and all that they died. So when he's telling that, and Shal is a relative, right? So he puts him front and center, telling him beforehand. So, but he's called Shal's brother.
Hmm.
So that very interesting point is Burishava and Shal probably died around the same time, towards the end of the day. So either that's when
Right.
the Draupades reached, or Draupades were there near Arjun from the beginning, which again tells you they were pretty powerful warriors and everything. Shutsoma used to, Dhanush was the Dhanush used for winning Draupadi, right? Arjun's old Dhanush before he got Gandhi, he gives to Shutsoma. So, Shutsoma. So basically, so this in this sequence altogether, Jayadratha didn't even die towards the end of the day.
Hmm.
No, there was
It
still
dies well
some
in
time after
advance.
that, and they were very much inside the Korwa lines. Like they were right next to the Korwa camp. Now 48 miles they've gone in when they've killed, and and then there's a brief break, and then Kauravas start the war in the night, right? So that
Right.
basically is because The idea was they are now literally fuming that they tried all their best and they could not stop him. Jadrat got killed without any eclipse, without any, and again, there is no, like, probably in some parallel universe or something, Krishna needed to get that. But here, basically, it was all their very well planned effort. And if you think about
Strategic
it, the
attack.
way, when Satyaki goes and the going is easy for him. Arjun has given so much damage. They have broken the morale of the middle lines of the Kaurav army. So when Satyaki goes in, he actually slows down a little. He says, "Slow down a little, medium speed. I want to clear make it even more clear because the others are coming behind." And that's what happens between the walls of the Chakravyuh which they created and the Shakatvyuh. The whole Pandav army just crushed the whole Kaurav army. 7 to 8 Akshawanis died that day, right? And so many died in so many numbers that Gandhari are seeing the 14-day dead in the battlefield still lying, animals eating them. Jayadratha's body is eaten by animals. Vikarna's beautiful face, is half devoured by animals and birds of prey and other things. So, which tells you that this is the day which finished Kaurav army as an organized force. They still fought for another 4 days, but they literally were never in it at that point in time, except when Shalya took over, and that we can discuss later.
Later.
Yeah, so
Okay.
to conclude, just sharing the actual text from both critical edition and the translation by Kesari Mohan Ganguly. So we can see Krishna says that cut off the head of the evil souled Saindava, the sun is about to set on Asta. So this very clearly shows that the sun had not set and there was no eclipse. And even in the KMG translation, Krishna talks about an eclipse, but it does not happen. We can see the same kind of wordings there.
Yeah.
From this, we can very clearly conclude that Arjuna killed Jayadratha before the sunset, and there was no eclipse or no miracle by Krishna. So that is only a myth.
And even when they're fighting, even when he's killing Jayadratha, he actually shooting at Ashwathama, Ashalya, and all these others around him also, and 64 arrows at Jayadratha in between. So basically, it was they all of them were there, and they were still fighting.
So this is a myth conclusively disproved. So that's the end of this episode. So we'll be back again with more episodes in the future with more myths. And we would request those who are watching to please send details of any myths that they would like discussed. We will take them for discussion in this evening. So next week we'll take a look at a very important myth related to the killing of Karna. So we'll see you again next week with that myth. So thank you again. Thank you so much, Vijay, and thank you so much,
Thank
Pranshu.
you.
Really
Thank you.
wonderful exposition with all those charts and the detailed sequencing of events. So I'm sure
Thank you.
people will love this episode when they watch it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.